Hello, my friends. Welcome to the HireMyVA Team and Business Building Podcast, brought to you by ugozi.com. In this podcast and at HireMyVA, we help you to reclaim your freedom through hiring and thriving with virtual assistants without breaking the bank, and that means your bank. And I'm Dave Braun, and as usual, I'm here with my friend Larry Broughton. He's a great mentor. He's a buddy traveling through life with me, not to mention someone who's coached the number is staggering, thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs to become successful, right? So in so many ways, and Larry, part of success is not just in business, but in lives. And I know you talk about wanting to get people not just looking at success, but significance as well.
Yeah. Well, hello, handsome Dave. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well.
Good. We do need to do that count one day about how many people have been through our programs and that we've mentored. I know it's been several hundred doing one-on-one coaching.
Yes.
But in the masterminds where we have a dozen or 15 people at the same time, it adds up pretty quickly. We've done
mastermind,
a lot of those.
Jam sessions.
Yes. Oh my gosh, we've done a lot of them, right? But boy, it's a lot of fun. But thank you, Dave, for being my friend and my mentor, and
of course,
my accountability partner and everything else in life. So let's kind of dive into this. Let's dive in. What's our question this week?
All right. So the question is, this is episode 102. The question is, drumroll, what is the importance of an employee satisfaction survey?
Oh, no, that's good.
Yeah.
We call them, and people call them different things, but we call them confidential work climate surveys.
Yeah.
And the reason we put that in there, the emphasis on the confidential part. We want people to know that their feedback that we're asking them for is confidential, that it's not going to be shared with other people, and it's not going to come back to haunt them.
That's right. Right.
The first time I really started learning about these things was, believe it or not, in the military. Where in special forces we used to do peer reviews during the training program.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was curious about how did that fit into the overall feedback loop. So oftentimes, Dave, we know what performance appraisals are, right? And that's where a supervisor is reviewing the performance of a quote unquote subordinate, someone that's in their charge. Right. But that's only one-way communication.
Sure.
Right. And then some people do peer reviews where peers will actually do reports on, people that are in their work team. So that's kind of crossways. But how do you close that loop? What you've got to ask the people in the organization, how are we doing as managers and leaders? Right. So the purpose of conducting these confidential work climate surveys is so that we can get the results so we can take the results of these surveys so that leaders, managers, owners can shape the future activities and make informed decisions about the direction of the organization, right?
Yeah.
And it gives the team, we call them team members, not employees, right? I'm just going to say this, I've said it 100 times, thousands of times in my career. If you treat someone like an employee, they will show up like an employee. You treat them like a team member and they understand that their efforts are part of the overall organization, right? We're all in this together. Everyone wants to be on a winning team, right? And so work climate surveys or work climate studies, whatever it is you call them, gives the team member the chance to channel all of their opinions through this official tool, right? So it can be easily analyzed. And so that's kind of the purpose of it. And we should probably just share what is it,
Yeah. And, by the way, folks, this is part one of a two-part episode. The next one, right? The 10, what are we at? 103. 103 is the next one. I forget, So 103 is going to end up being, our second part where we're going to talk about how you implement. Here we're just talking about the purpose. But the purpose is more important than the how, because if you don't have the purpose right, the why behind it, you're going to get the how wrong. And then, the part of the, if you're going to do this employee confidential survey, a work climate survey, you want to have participation and you want to make sure you take action. So if you don't have a good why behind it, both of those things are not going to happen well.
Well, the idea, again, if we're using this to chart the future, what we want to know is, hey, team member, how are things going? Just generally, this is the general direction. How are things going in the organization? Do you know the mission of the organization? Do you have the proper tools to be effective in your role? Do you trust your leaders? Do you understand what your role is in the organization? The one that we've used in our organization for a long time is about 45 to 50 questions, right? We go a little bit deeper than a lot of folks do. We ask things like, if you were offered a job somewhere else, would you take it? That's an important thing to know, right? Particularly during this great resignation that's going on in the country right now. We ask, hey, if you were ill and in the hospital, would your supervisor come visit you? Important, right?
Yeah.
If you were in the hospital, or
well, given COVID right now,
but generally, yeah.
I'm just
but you get the gist, right?
Yeah.
If a family member were ill or died, would your team members support you? Do you feel like your team members would support you, right? What we're trying to do is like, what is the culture? What's the climate of the organization? Right? And so
climate is more important, and your culture is more important than everything, than almost anything else right now.
That's right.
Given what's going on, right? With the great resignation and people just recently, the company that I'm very intimately with, a couple of key members on their team just left, and they spent so much time and energy recruiting them. Why did they leave? They don't exactly know yet, which is an important thing we can talk about in another episode. But, if you make your culture as great as possible and understand what people are really thinking through these surveys, you'll have a lot better chance on keeping folks.
Yeah, let me give just a really quick example of one of the questions. This one about, do you have the tools to do your job effectively?
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Oftentimes we harp on our team members. Why aren't you getting this done? Why did this mistake keep getting made? Well, if they're a graphics person and they don't have a good suite of graphics software, that could be a problem, right? In my organization, in the hotel company, we had acquired a hotel several years ago, and as we were going through all the past guest comments, the guest surveys that they fill out, it's always dusty room, dust on top of the picture frames, dust on the ceiling fan. And so when we gave the survey, we found out that really what the room attendants wanted, but no one ever got for them, was dust wands.
Oh.
A collapsible wand that had a dust thing on the top so they could reach up and hit high surfaces. Because not all of our room attendants are mutants like me who can walk in and see dust at eye level, right? Many of them are 5'2" or 5'4", and they can't climb up on these things. So if they had a simple dust wand, that could help their life. No one ever asked them. And that's what we said, well, why don't you have these? Well, we didn't know that we could have them.
Crazy.
So what they did, they took the beatings every week. Another complaint from a guest. You guys have to get up there and clean these, fans, whatever. Just ask, what tools do you need to be more effective?
Yeah. And that's great. And that's one of the, when we talk about the whys, the results of acting on what happens is one of the big whys. I remember given the hotels, I remember one time, and I can't remember, a lot of times, before, I can't remember exactly when it was, but a lot of times, we have to open up the drawers before we leave a hotel room and all that, right? And look under the bed. You
didn't leave anything behind.
Yeah. That's right. I've done that before. Somebody's wearing my clothes over in England right now. I left some there. But anyway, I remember looking under the bed one time, and there was a little tent card that said "cleaned by blank."
Right. Or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure that came as a cool result of a survey, but like maybe not just a survey, but having an open environment where people can contribute their suggestions for improvements.
Well, this is one of the things. This is one of the side benefits, I think, Dave, of doing the confidential work climate surveys. If you're a good leader, if you're a great manager, you publish the results and you give an action plan on what you're going to do to address the shortcomings.
Yes.
The worst thing you can do is to do this survey and then you never close the loop for the team members, or you never address their issues or their concerns.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in the next episode, because I had some of those experiences working in the corporate world.
Yeah.
And there's a certain methodology that you've got to make sure you follow to keep going with this. And if you do it, and that's exactly right. If you don't, if you ignore it, if you don't give that feedback the proper importance in your organization, you're gonna just your culture will change, and people will not want to improve, and you'll do more harm than good.
Yeah, well, think about it this way. It's like asking your lover, your spouse, your significant other, what can I do to change? How can I be a better spouse? And they tell you, and you don't do anything about it. What's that going to do? It's not going to go over very well. You know, it's going to say, why? They're going to get to the point like, why are you even asking?
Yeah.
Why even ask?
Exactly. So it's demotivating, right?
So stay tuned for the next episode, and we'll dive deeper into that. So it's a cliffhanger one, Dave.
Yeah, that's right. So hopefully you guys are convinced that it's an important thing to do. And we're going to talk the next time about, well, you know, how do you do it if you have a bigger organization versus having, you know, maybe one or two folks in your organization, like a lot of you folks that are listening to us, you know, probably have, you know, that number in your group. How do you do something as equivalent or as best as you can given those circumstances?
Well, Dave, I think part of the benefits here, why do you do this? Ultimately, you want to attract rock star team members, and you want to reduce turnover. I mean, we're in business, okay? We're not most of the people that are listening are not nonprofits. And even if you are, there are a lot of elements of the corporate business world that you should be applying to your nonprofit. But when you take what your team members are telling you, you apply it to the organization if it's relevant, right? And if it's not, you need to make sure and explain why it's not relevant, and, you know, thank them for the feedback. But the idea here is to ultimately reduce turnover.
Yes.
Turnover is one of the most costly things that you for your organization. We talked about this briefly in the previous episode, I think. But the cost of a bad hire or losing someone can be anywhere from 1.5 times their annual salary or payroll to one survey I saw that was in a document that we published years ago was 2.3 times more costly for senior executives.
Yes.
So if someone's making, you know, whatever it is, let's say $100,000 in your organization, it's going to cost 2.3 times more than that. So $230,000 to replace that person in the organization. That's real money.
That's staggering.
Real money.
And it's really staggering. It really is.
Yeah. So, and you think about what's happening in the country today, where it's not just one person who's leaving an organization, several people are leaving. So let's say you got somebody who's making, you know, crying out loud, if they're making $20 an hour, which is not unreasonable, they're making, you know, 40 some or 60 some $1,000 a year, it's still costing you $100,000 a year to replace them.
Yeah.
Or $75,000 a year. When, hey, how about let's ask them what do they need, and let's fix it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a better place, a better approach?
Oh yeah. And you know, and I want to also emphasize on that cost there, that's the money, but time is kind of factored into that. Yeah. But think about it from your perspective, how much time you have to spend. Well, if you are a larger company and you have a board of directors, and if it's like a C-suite type of position, a lot of times the board will help interview people as well. And it's time, their time is valuable. So it's like, oh man, it's
well, what does not go into that figure is the emotional wear and tear on you and your fellow team members.
Oh,
you can't measure that, right? So people want stability. You like these sports analogies, Dave. It's rare that you will lose, which is not uncommon in my industry. You lose 50% of your team in 1 year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In restaurants, it's 100% turnover. It's very hard to have a winning team when you have such constant turnover, right? So if we can limit this, but the problem, Dave, I think I see with a lot of folks, and hopefully it's not folks that are listening to this episode or this podcast, is that there are a lot of people, I'm going to use air quotes around these terms, manager, leader, and business owner, who have an us against them mentality with their and I'm going to use the word intentionally this time, employees, because they treat them like that. And so that their people show up like that, and it's combative and it's rude. And they look at their team members as these, I don't know, they treat them like a commodity.
Yeah.
And they just burn through people. And you do things because that's the way I said, and just make it happen. That is not a long-term recipe for success. I promise you that. It might work for the day, it might work for the week, but it's not a long-term recipe for success.
Yep. It won't. And, and as soon as, if you have that kind of a culture, even almost any culture, one person leaves, especially with a culture like you talked about, one person leaves, everybody else is going to be thinking, should I leave? Should I start searching out there? That's right. It can become a ripple effect and cripple you, right? As an organization. That's right. We don't want that. That's why you're listening to us, right? All right. Well, the next episode, we're going to talk about some do's and don'ts, some hows on how, whatever. We're going to talk about a few hows on this. So make sure you listen to that. Stay with us, because it's important for you guys to do these surveys. All right.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Right, well, thank you everybody for being part of this podcast and joining us. And remember, building a team is the way to reclaim your freedom. We're here to help you with our course and community, and of course, our white glove service, where we find a rock star VA for you. Okay. Now, 3 things we'd love for you to do, and we'd really, really, really appreciate it. Did I say really? I mean, really. So subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already done so. Whatever phone you're using, subscribe. YouTube, hit the subscribe button and click on the little bell next to it to get reminders of new episodes coming out. And then number 2, give us a rating, preferably, of course, 5-star. That's what we want. But whatever you feel like you want us to do, what you want to do, that'll be fine. Leave a comment below this video. Anything will help us get the word out. And then, of course, number 3, go to HireMyVA.com for more information on our course and community, and, of course, our white glove service. And remember, though, even without experience, you'll learn how to prepare for, hire, and thrive with virtual assistants. Larry and I have helped a lot of folks over the years, and we're continuing to help folks. We're getting more people in our community, and we'd really love you guys to join us and to get freedom in your life. So just go to HireMyVA.com for more information.
Yeah, and go to Yoogozi.com, YOOGOZI.
Yeah.
And it's really our online platform of bite-sized nuggets for entrepreneurs, leaders, and high achievers. And if you've got questions about this topic or any other topic, go to our community or leave a comment here. Ask us a question. This is what Dave and I do. We love doing this stuff, and your questions help us get sharper, become better. As I say, iron sharpens iron. And I want to be around people who are rock stars and who are smart and thinking. Absolutely. Because that helps me, right? But as entrepreneurs, as leaders, we've got a moral obligation to do great things with our businesses. We can't do it alone. Okay, lean on those folks that are around you. But I'll leave you with this. God bless you. God keep you. God hold you. All right, my friends, go do something significant today. Go get them.
All right. See ya. Bye, folks.